So today we are going to do our appraisals and
Yes.
valuation. That is what we are talking about.
Mhm.
Valuation slash appraisals.
You guys ready to do some questions?
Yeah, let's get
You
to
ready?
it.
So basically, in my pre-licensing class, we're doing a CMA. Okay, I'm teaching appraisal this semester, and we're doing a CMA. So what does everybody know a CMA is? Put in the chat if you know what a CMA is. Hopefully, everybody remembers what a CMA is. Oh, Kenya's got her exam coming up. So
Ooh,
remember, the
nice.
CMA is the comparative or competitive market analysis, depending on who you talk to. And that's what we're going to take. It's kind of looks like the sales comparison approach to appraisal, but of course, we're not appraisers, so we don't call it that. But we're going to compare our subject property to usually 3 active properties and 3 sold properties and come up with a value for our potential client or our client, depending on the case.
Mhm.
Now, one of the questions that they had, Candace, and I thought you would find this interesting, because our inventory is so low, pretty much everywhere, but where I'm at in near Cincinnati, Ohio, I had to go out further than normal to find some active comps.
Okay.
So I'm in like a totally conforming little subdivision type small town where all the houses were kind of built during the housing boom of 2000 to 2008. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. And so normally I pick that town because I can just be like, boom, 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 boom. Here's an active, here's an active, here's an active, here's sold, here's sold. And it's not happening right now. So we had to go out a couple miles, believe it or not, to find some comps that made sense for the actives. So
Mm.
why did I do that, you guys? I kind of just said it, but in your own words, if I'm a client of yours right now and they're like, well, wait a minute, you didn't use any actives from my neighborhood. You went out like 2 miles. Well, I did use one, but why did you go out 2 miles? How are you going to explain that to your clients? Because you guys are going to be facing this. This is going to be happening when you become an agent right away. Like, Candace, what I'll let you give your pitch. Like, I'm a client. I'm like, well, Candace, why'd you go so far?
Are we talking about for a buyer or a seller? Because you know how I spin it is different. But either
Mhm.
way, it's the same answer.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. We're not appraisers. We're not finding a value. What I am doing is doing a CMA for you, seller, so you can figure out what to price your home. And buyer, if I'm doing the CMA for you, I'm trying to figure out what you want to offer. Like, what are the other houses on the market? So when it comes right down to it, yeah, because we're not appraisers, yes, I want to choose 3 that are in our neighborhood, both active and sold, but it's all about the market. And if right now there's only one house on the market in your neighborhood, then everybody's going to see that one house and you're going to have competition for those houses further out that Maria pulled. So they become very important to the pricing of that particular house because the market is what the market is.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
people are
there's
shopping.
one out there. There is
And
not out.
that's, yeah, there's just, that's what's out there. So that's what you have to
Yeah.
do. And that's
Now,
what Lori said. I love it. See what other houses have sold for with similar features. Yep. They're
yes.
comparing similar properties and what they're selling for. Hey, Sandy. So, yes, I think that is excellent. I mean, that's what I would have done. And that's what we all have to do because the market is the market. And our job is to say, what is a probable sales price?
Yep. And another thing that's interesting that I just thought of,
Yeah.
when appraisers go out and do an appraisal, they're not going to use expireds. So when I do CMAs, I usually throw in a couple of expireds. The reason
Well,
why I want to show what happens when you overprice your house, right?
well, and appraisers can only use sold comps because the bank wants to know what did sell, not what could sell or what didn't sell. And when we price, we don't want to go too high, but we also don't want to go too low. So when we do a CMA as agents, we can use expireds, closed, actives, all of those things help us price. Yeah. The more recent, the better.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then Katie asked about expireds, like what are expired? So those are the ones that expired without selling. Like, I put my house on the market, I marketed it, and it did not sell. Usually, not always, but usually because of price or condition, right? Sometimes it's just a really freaky, weird house that nobody was interested in for whatever reason. But okay, so Candace, here's another thing that I was asked about. And we're talking about adjustments. So one of the things that my class asked about was, what about adjustments? How do I determine adjustments to make adjustments? So I'm gonna let you do question number 1, and then we'll talk about it some more. What do you think?
Are we asking about real life or on the test?
Well, Both maybe, but yeah. I mean, I think more on the test, but yeah, in real life too, I think they were asking about real life, like how would we make adjustments? And I just tell people, we would isolate. So I got a house with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths that sells for 300,000. And I got another house with 3 bedrooms with 3 baths. They're pretty much the same, and it sells
Mhm.
for 325. Well, the difference in the price change right there is about 25,000. So the appraiser, I'm oversimplifying, but the appraiser is going to say, "Oh, wait, a bathroom in this neighborhood is about worth $25,000." And
Mhm.
that leads us to this question that we got on the screen. A feature found in a comparable property that is not present in the subject property will result
Result
in
in.
what?
So, while you're saying that, I was gonna say the reason, because somebody asked real life. The reason
Mhm.
I say this is because on the test, when we do any type of math, if you're in a state where you do this math, they give you a bathroom is this,
Yeah,
a kitchen is that, and that is not a list that exists in real life. That's
right.
what I meant by and
Point.
as real life. You have to find exactly like Maria said, you have to find the values of a bathroom or a garage or a porch by comparing closed properties. By
Mhm,
saying, "Oh, I have this house with 3 bedrooms and a garage, and then I have this other house that has 3 bedrooms and no garage," and they're basically the same property, except the one with the garage sold for 325 and the one without the garage sold for 315.
mhm.
Well, then that means the garage must have added about $10,000 in value. So in real life, you have to come up with those numbers yourself. And in the test, if it's a math problem, they're giving you those numbers. But let's get to this question like she said. A feature found in a comparable property that is not present in the subject property will result in. So what do you do when the comp has a feature that is not present in the subject property? Is it an increase adjustment to the subject property's selling price? Is it a reduction adjustment to the comparable selling price? Is it an increase adjustment to, no, there you go, to the comparable selling price? Or is it the reduction adjustment to the subject's property selling price? So what
Sorry,
I
you
see
yeah.
across here are B's, 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 right? Is it B? Of course it is. Why? Because if you have, so let's take that example I just gave. 3 bedrooms with a garage just sold for 325. 3 bedrooms, let's say the subject has just 3 bedrooms. What we're saying is, well, if it's sold with a porch, right? With a porch, it was 325, sorry. If it's sold with the porch for 325, obviously we need to take value away from that comparable so that we can say, oh, well, if it hadn't had a porch, it would have sold for 315. Thus my subject is worth 315. So hopefully that makes sense.
The purpose of a percolation test is to determine, is it the approximate size of the cistern to accommodate a given size house or farm building? Is it the necessary depth of the footings? Is it the quantity and potability of well water? Meaning, can it be drank, right? Or capacity of soil to absorb water? What do you guys think?
It's so that they can do, it's time for the
Yes.
percolator. It's time for the percolator. You don't know that song? I love that song. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm over here, percolating. But I miss that song. I want the 90s back. The 90s called
I
me and they
know.
want me back.
No, me too. I was telling my mom the other day, I was like, I wish I could vote for Bill Clinton. I just want to vote for Bill Clinton. I just want to go back to the 90s. That was when life was so good.
That's
Yes, like
because
a
we did
past.
because we
We
didn't pay
didn't go too
bills. We
far.
weren't adults in the 90s. That's why I wonder, boo. We're just sitting there percolating. Shanika says now that beats in her head. Doop, 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 doop.
Just
So
so
let's
the
talk about what a percolation
capacity
test is, or a perk test. That's not what you're supposed to call it, but a lot of people do call it the perk test. So Maria, tell them about the perk test.
So we want to, before we go out and we start buying, building new properties, building new houses on land, we want to make sure that that land is not going to stay wet and flood, right? We got to make sure that that
Why?
can absorb the water because we don't want a floody mess.
Well, so remember, because I was one of these people, I grew up in the city. Some people, if you live in the city, when you flush, your poo water gets handled by the
Oh, I
city.
see what you're saying for the septic tank. I was like, what? Yeah, I
But
have a septic tank.
but if
Yeah.
you live in the country, there is no city water and sewer sometimes. That means you got to deal with your own poo water, otherwise known as gray water. And what they do is they put the poo water in a big tank and then it separates itself out and then it goes to water the grass. That's a
Yeah.
very long story short. But you need to know how much poo, somewhat cleaner poo water your land can handle. So that tells you how many bedrooms can be on the property because you do the bedrooms with the number of people. So you know how many people's poo can the septic tank handle. Which of the following would be considered economic obsolescence? Which of the following will be considered economic obsolescence? Is it termite damage, architectural design, zoning changes, or negligent care? What say you? Somebody
Economic
said they're too
outside of
childish
our
for this conversation.
control.
Inez, we were
It's
too
outside of
childish.
our control. A railroad track in my backyard could cause economic obsolescence, right? That's outside of my property boundaries. It's outside of my control, but it's bringing down my value. Factories that pollute near me, bringing down my value. Anything outside of my control. Okay. When the term HVAC appears in commercial or industrial lease, it normally refers to homesteads, vacancies, and additional conveyances, high voltage alternating current, heating, venting, and air conditioning, or high vacancies, apartments, and condos. And the reason why I picked this one is because I actually had a lady that I was working on a class for, and she was like, I don't know what HVAC means. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So it was interesting because I always think, well, people know what this is, but it is heating, venting, and air conditioning, right? The HVAC guy comes and fixes my air conditioner, my furnace, right? All right, now next one, Candace.
Jane saw a property that was $900,000. She then found a property that had the same use design and income the next town over for $600,000 because of the price she purchased the home in the next town over. This would be the principle of. So why did she buy the house in the next town over? Which principle? She had one that was 900,000, one that was 600,000. She chose the $600,000. Is it because of substitution, progression, contribution, or regression? And of course, you all know it's a substitution.
Nobody's going to pay too much when they can get it cheaper somewhere else.
Well, sometimes, because I sure did go to Target today instead of Walmart.
You're so
But
fan.
that's the thing. Okay, taking it back to real estate, guys, the principle of substitution is how people generally it's not 100%. Again, some people go to Target instead of Walmart, even though I know I could have gotten everything I needed for today from Walmart for cheaper.
The Sedan family purchased the largest and most expensive house in a new subdivision. 5 years later, they were ready to move. The monetary value of the home had gone up proportionally less than the other homes in the neighborhood, which is for being snobby. This phenomenon is an example of the principle of diminishing return, change, regression, or substitution. What do you guys think?
I think the song Phenomenon is a song by
Phenomenon.
LL Cool J from what 90s is it?
Oh my god. So, regression, right? They're regretting their decision. Their value is being brought down because they are overdoing it for the neighborhood. If their house was sitting around other houses that were as fancy as theirs, then it would have held its value better. But because the neighbors are not as fancy, it is bringing the value down. Now, what about the opposite? What if I have like the house that like I don't mow the grass, it's all raggedy looking, and everybody around me is all real nice? It's going to bring my value up. That's progression, right? I'm making progress versus my regrets, right? There you go. All right, panelists, here comes the next one. Okay, here we go.
Which of the following factors contributes most to the maintenance of value in a well planned residential community? Is it conformity to proper land use objectives, deed restrictions, variances which allow highest and best use of every parcel, or the prevention of major street construction throughout the community?
This was kind of tricky.
I've never seen this one before.
Really?
I think so. Or maybe, you know what? Today my brain is all 90s. I wouldn't know. If it doesn't have a 90s theme to it, I don't know what I saw.
Hmm.
What say you all? I'm getting lots of C's. I'm
Mm,
getting lots of C's. Which is going to contribute most to the maintenance of value, keeping the value where it's supposed to be?
But I'm not going with C. I'm not feeling C.
Well, I wouldn't have said C,
I mean, I feel like it's
but it
A.
could be C. Let's see.
I feel like it's A, you guys. What do you think, Candace? I feel like it's A. Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah, I would, yeah, yeah.
Conformity to proper land use objectives, because conformity helps us hold our value. We wouldn't
So think of it,
necessarily get variances for every lot in the neighborhood. That's the reason. Okay.
just saying.
So, a real estate appraisal is an estimate of value based upon analysis of the facts of a specific date, based upon replacement cost, derived from income data covering at least the preceding 6 months, or derived from average tax assessments covering the past 5 years. I think this is an awesome question because I think this is a very real, true to life kind of exam type question, don't you, Candace?
I do.
On the facts as of a specific date. Remember what could happen. The principle of change says tomorrow a hurricane could come blow my house away. So the appraiser is going to say, this is the value as of this date. Tomorrow, this house might be torn on a heck. So
Yeah.
they give you it based on a specific date. Doesn't mean that the value is necessarily going to change tomorrow. It doesn't mean that the lender is going to order a new appraisal if it takes a week to close after the appraisal, but it just means that they're only saying for this date, this is what I think.
And that is
Okay.
tied back to why you use things that closed most recently.
Good point. Good point.
All right. The price at which a willing and informed buyer would buy and a willing and informed seller would sell is called the book value, assessed value, income approach to value, or market value. Ooh, I'm seeing a theme.
Market value. Now, when would we use assessed value though, you guys? I was talking about this with a student today in tutoring. When would we use the assessed value? When does that matter? Taxes, exactly.
Exactly.
Our tax assessed value. I know, Candace, where you lived, is the tax assessed value different than the true value?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
We
yeah.
only set our assessed value every 8 years.
But it's like way off because ours is like way different.
Yeah, yeah, ours because they set it in year 1 and where I'm in North Carolina, and then we keep that same value for 8 years. So, yeah, it by year 6, 7, and 8, it's way off.
8 years?
8 years. We
Really?
have an act every 8 years. There can be a
A long
horizontal
time.
adjustment in year 4, but once every 8 years.
Wow, that's a long time. That's interesting.
That so when you said it's way off, I'm like, yeah, it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars off
Yeah.
some. Shanita has a question. Shanita, what's the difference between market value and market price? So market value is what the appraiser finds. They're coming up with, hey, based on closed things, what do I think this is worth? Kind of like when you get like a diamond appraised. They give you their opinion of value. Market price is what somebody actually is willing to pay. So if you list a house and they get it appraised before you put it on the market, the appraiser could say it's worth 450 all day. But if nobody wants it for 450 and it doesn't sell, it sells, but at 430, the market price is 430. Price is what it actually sells for. Value is what the appraiser thought it was worth.
The term depreciation refers to the value of real estate after the expiration of its useful life, the costs incurred to renovate or modernize a building, capitalized value of lost rental income, or the loss of value in real estate from any cause. Remember,
I'm
depreciation
sensing a
for taxes is a little
D.
different. Yep. D. We got it. We got it.
Right. Of the following factors, that which would not contribute to obsolescence is, which would not contribute to obsolescence is it wear and tear from use? Is it change of locational demand? Is it out of date equipment? Or is it misplacement of improvement? Of the following factors, that which would not contribute to obsolescence is, which one is not obsolescence? Got lots of A's. Got the A's rolling in.
Wear and tear.
That's
Because
right,
that's
because
wear and
that would
tear.
be deterioration.
Yep, physical deterioration. Appraiser is using the market data approach, comparing the prices of comparable properties to the subject property. If the comparable properties have a feature that is not present in the subject property, the value of that feature should be what? Identified in the report, but given no consequences. Added to the sales price of the subject. Ignored since no two properties are alike. Or subtracted from the sales price of the comparables. See,
What say you? I'm getting D's, 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 D's.
because it's superior, we're going to make that negative adjustment. We're going to bring it down. We're going to bring it down. And that is what we would do.